What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JBsports back again with another one. Undisputed welterweight champion and consensus #1 pound-for-pound fighter in boxing, Terrence Bud Crawford, is plotting his next move inside that square circle. Last seen in the ring, destroying, demolishing, dissecting Errol Spence Jr., who was the current unified welterweight champion, and I had him as my #2 pound-for-pound fighter going into that fight, right behind Crawford, who I had as my #1 pound-for-pound fighter. And Crawford destroyed him. Crawford put on the best performance of his career. The fight was one-sided to the surprise of a lot of people, including yours truly, and he was able to separate himself not only from Errol Spence Jr., from a lot of great champions of the past, and put himself in rarefied air as the greatest, or one of the greatest welterweight champions in boxing history. With all that being said, who will he square off with next? Well, he's got a rematch that was part of a 2-fight deal involving Errol Spence Jr. Now, the loser of the first fight had 30 days to exercise a rematch clause, and the winner of the first fight would choose to wait. Now, Errol Spence Jr. going into the first fight told a whole lot of people in the media that this would be his last fight at 147. Win, lose, or draw, this would be his last fight at 147. But according to Terrence Bud Crawford, the language in the contract stated that Errol Spence Jr., since he lost the first fight, would have to notify Terrence Crawford that he can no longer make 147, that he would like the fight to transpire at 154. According to Terrence Bud Crawford, Errol Spence Jr. failed to notify him that. Therefore, the rematch must happen. According to Terrence Crawford, the rematch must happen at 147. And based on his performance in the first fight, it's no longer plausible that Errol Spence Jr. can fight effectively at 147. He probably can't beat Terrence Crawford at 154, 160, or any weight class, because Terrence Crawford is just a superior fighter, but his chances are DOA at 147. And if he can't get that fight at 154, I would advise Errol Spence Jr., if I was part of his team, I would advise him, if I was his advisor, Al Heyman, I would advise him to move up to 154 and chase a world title in your second weight class. With all that being said, Showtime will no longer be involved in boxing at the conclusion of the month of December. December 31st will be the last day for Showtime to be involved in boxing. A lot of people out here speculating that Showtime being out of boxing will have an effect on the rematch between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. I'm here to tell you on this video that it will have no effect on Crawford-Spence 2. What will have effect on Crawford-Spence 2 is the fight don't get done by the end of December. Because if it don't get done by the end of December, then basically the rematch is null and void. Now, the PBC can go to Terrence Crawford and ask for extension, and Terrence Crawford can oblige them or not oblige them. It'll be strictly up to Terrence Crawford. But the bottom line is, Spence can't fight him at 147 because I don't think he no longer effectively or healthy. I don't think he can no longer make 147 and be effective or be healthy. He looked like a shell of his former self in the first fight with Crawford. Got destroyed. We had never seen that version of Crawford. A lot of people blame it on his accidents and the lifestyle that he lived outside the square circle. You know, and some people blame it on rust, inactivity. It probably was a combination of all those things. But the bottom line is, what was the main reason why Spence lost that fight was because Terrence Crawford is a superior fighter. So with all that being said, I'm hearing that the Showtime has 3 dates lined up to finish 2023 year out, and that is November 25th, which is already penciled in for David Benavidez to defend his interim WBC super middleweight title versus Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade, a fight that will be featuring 2 of the top 3 fighters in the super middleweight division. December 9th, from what I'm hearing, is going to be a card featuring Hall of Fame fighter Floyd Mayweather Jr. in an exhibition matchup, and the front runner opponent is John Gotti. They had a fight several months ago, and that would be a rematch to finish out the year for December 9th on Showtime pay-per-view. I'm also hearing that December 16th will be a non-pay-per-view card for Showtime. Will be the last Showtime card. That'll feature Danny Garcia, who will be chasing his 3rd world title in a 3rd different weight class. He'll be taking on WBA middleweight champion Ezri Landry Lara, who holds a title in the middleweight division. That fight is reported to be at a catch weight of 155 pounds because Danny Garcia's last fight was at 147. You got to remember that he's a former 140-pound champion, so he'll be moving up from 147 to 155 to take on the middleweight champion at a catch weight. Also reported to be on that card is Keith One-Time Thurman, aka Keith Sometime Thurman, taking on regular WBA welterweight champion Manchester Jonas. That'll be a hell of a card to finish out the Showtime boxing. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. So there's no available dates for the month of December for Errol Spence Jr. versus Chance Crawford rematch. And as we know, it's been reported that that fight must take place by the end of December, and no dates available for the month of December. That means that Terrence Crawford can go on his merry way and fight another opponent, and Errol Spence Jr. can go on his merry way and fight another opponent. Now, if you ask me, will that likely happen? I doubt it, because Terrence Crawford is not going to get the Canelo Alvarez fight. Now, he's been asking for that fight, for the last month or two, saying that he wants to fight Canelo Alvarez. He was at the Canelo Alvarez fight with Jermell Charlo. But Canelo Alvarez was saying before and after the fight that he's not interested in a Terrence Crawford fight, that Terrence Crawford is not in the plans. And from what I'm hearing, that his next fight likely was going to be against Jermell Charlo, who will be on the undercard of the Benavidez-Andrade fight if he defeats Jose Benavidez Jr. or Carlos Adamas. It's going to be one of those 2 opponents for Canelo Alvarez's next fight, which will be Cinco de Mayo in May of 2024. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires, but it's looking very, very unlikely that we get the rematch between Errol Spence Jr. versus Terrence Crawford this year. It's still a good chance, in my opinion, that the fight transpires in the first quarter of 2024, because Terrence Crawford's biggest bag is an Errol Spence Jr. rematch, and Errol Spence Jr.'s biggest bag is a rematch versus Terrence Crawford. If they fight other opponents, they will not make the bag that they will make fighting each other in a rematch. I would not think that the rematch will do quite the business of the first fight, but it will still do good business. Therefore, will command both fighters earning a very, very substantial payday. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Very, very interesting developments in the sport of boxing. We're coming to the conclusion of the year. This has been a very strong year for the sport of boxing, but a lot of people are very sad and disappointed that Showtime Boxing will be no more as we go to the beginning of 2024, as we close out the end of 2023. December 31st will be the last day of operations, business operations, for Showtime Sports, as Paramount Global, who's overseeing Showtime, is looking to shut down the Showtime Sports department, along with other departments, along with other platforms that Showtime has been putting on for years and years. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Follow me on Facebook, Gerard Briscoe. Like, share, and subscribe to JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. And I holla.